Good evening. Today, I'm sorry we don't have music. We were going to play music to allow our viewers to, first of all, settle down, go get a cup of tea or a cup of water, and come and sit and listen to this wonderful program tonight. This is TVBAKWETU. First and foremost, I would love to welcome and recognize Avena Chiwempala, Mulishani Avena Chiwempala, Copper Belts, Avena Kopala, Mulishani wa Kuchipata, Mulishani Avena Kitwe, Avena Solwezi, Mwinilunga, Wahae Muchwani Sitabasa Hesu Sitabasa Bulozi, Kiruna Vake Lutaha, Lumitiselizebo, Hamududu Kachekule Muka. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and Avena Livingstone, wherever you are watching us, Southern Province, Monze, Kalomo, Choma, Twami Tambula Manza Ovilo.
Yes,
I hope I'm saying it the right way. Tolumbaga Party. Anyway, today we have our guest, who is the Honorable Highvie Hamududu, and we are going to talk a little bit about the budget, since he is the man behind the economist, or is an economist by profession. And I have the co-host, who is our lady, Madam Mwelwa. Welcome to the program, Madam.
Thank you so much, and welcome to our viewers from around the world.
Thank you, and welcome to the program, Honorable Highvie Hamududu. This Hamududu name is really amazing. I can play with this name.
Yeah,
yes,
Madam. It's a pleasure, a real pleasure for me to appear before your esteemed TV.
Thank you.
I look forward to a very engaging conversation.
Thank you so much. Hamududu, on this program, we actually, on this forum, we do speak our vernacular. We are allowed to express our views in our mother tongues. It is important for most of our viewers. Not everyone, of course, everyone can speak English, but mostly we want you, as you express yourself, somehow please bring in some Tonglish, Tonga and English, and you can mix it Tonglish. If at all that is around, that is there.
No, but now I've enrolled. I'm learning Bemba, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
you should
I was just telling my wife here that please keep me. If you divorce me, I'm marrying a Bemba woman.
Oh no, and we know you Tonga people. You are allowed to marry more than one wife.
You know Mwera, you know Kukunkula.
Kukunkula.
Yes.
The following day, I buy a Benz for you.
Mayo. I'm sure you need to go and arrive first.
Thank you.
Yes. No, let's just try to go straight into our program today. What is on our agenda today? We're going to talk about the budget. We want to hear the budget. When the budget was announced by the Honorable Minister Msokotwani, you as an economist, we want you to be honest and categorical here, Madala. Tell us your thoughts of the budget, and what did you think of the budget in general? And then I'll come to the specific, or especially the allocation of the monies that was given, the CDS. So that is the most important aspect as well. And we have been hearing also some controversial negative news from the opposition claiming that there was, I don't know whether we can call it, there was a lacuna in the budget or something like that. There was
the numbers were not adding up.
Numbers were not adding up. So I want to hear your take from there, then we can proceed. Just be brief and to the point.
Yes, please. So let me give you a general overview of the budget for the budget proposal for 2022. First of all, I must say that I have a lot of respect and high regard for Honorable Kabwata. And by the way, he was my lecturer when I was doing economics at UNZA. And later on, he actually helped me to get an internship at the Bank of Zambia, because from UNZA, he went to Bank of Zambia. So we are very close, and we also served together in Parliament. When he came into Parliament, when he was nominated under President Banda, he found me in Parliament. I was in the back bench when he came in as the finance minister. So I understand his economic policy framework. He's one of the best economists we have. As an individual, I have so much faith in him. But of course, when you are presenting a budget, it's circumstantial. There is a political party and there are other players. So it's really a UPND budget, not a Musokotwane budget, but of course, presented by somebody, and at the center, somebody who understands the problems we face as a country. Now, this particular budget, for me, at a general observation, has two problems. Generally, it's a bit populist and a little bit experimental. Zambia's economy at the moment is unstable. When you look at the macroeconomic indicators, the growth rate, the exchange rate, the reserves, the gross international reserves, the interest rates, the inflation rate, indicate that the economy basically is sick. When an economy is not well, the posture in the budget or any economic policy should be about stabilization and recovery as a precursor to growth. But this particular budget has been presented on the backdrop of many problems. And I understand the problems they are facing. Number one, there is an unprecedented jump in the budget. The increase in the budget, total budget is unprecedented. It's quite a huge jump. And most of the resources to cover that expenditure will come from borrowing. You know, that's the problem. Okay. About 40% of the financing is coming from borrowing, and we are talking about an economy which already spends 40% of its budget on debt servicing, 50% on the wage bill. What really remains for service delivery is about 10% or less. And therefore, the focus of any government in budgeting in our circumstances is to create a fiscal space. Number one, to reduce the debt, reduce the wage bill so that you can create fiscal space for actual service delivery. Now, what the minister has done and the UPND government is that they have presented an expansionary budget on expenditure, quite a huge expenditure, financed by borrowing, because the resources were not enough, the domestic revenues were not enough to cover the ambitious expenditure. Now, this budget stands on two things. Number one, borrowing. So on one hand, it's standing on borrowing, because the biggest percentage is on borrowing, yet we already have a huge debt. But there's something smart about the finance minister now. The borrowing he has got, for example, from World Bank is concessional and over 30 years. In a normal circumstance, that's good borrowing because that's a smart loan. It's not onerous on
Are you there?
So if it would be a problem. So that's one angle. The other angle is that the minister he is put this budget on the backdrop or on an anticipation of an increase in copper prices. So there's an anticipation on this budget. Now, Borrowing is an issue that we do not have total control. And by the way, he still has to borrow again from IMF to fill in the financing gap. On the other hand, he expects that the economy will rebound, especially from the mining sector, with the envisaged increase in copper prices. Now, we do not have full control of, what happens with the copper marketing. We don't buy copper, we just mine and sell. We don't know how the global uptake of copper will be. And if there will be a downward swing, the budget will have a problem. But if things continue as envisaged, the copper price will continue increasing, and there will be increase in the investment, which is really coming through, because he has done very well. He has revised the mineral royalty issue, which was really a bottleneck for investment in the mining sector. If you remember, in 2019, the then Minister of Finance introduced a non-deductibility for mineral royalty for corporate income taxes. So when you pay mineral royalty, they never allowed mining companies to deduct when they are calculating the income tax or corporation tax. They treated a mineral royalty basically as part of the tax. So there was double taxation. This minister has removed the non-deductibility, and that has improved the appetite for investment in the mining sector. The current mining house production, and there is now increased appetite in exploration, and we expect to see new mines coming. I've already heard Rio Tinto is responding to the good fiscal regime in the mining sector. Anglo-American is coming. We need these investors. We don't have enough capital to exploit the minerals. Of course, we need a better partnership, but we need them. We need them, and therefore the minister has given us a very good fiscal regime, which we've been calling for many years, the last 3 to 4 years, that the mineral issue should have been to attract investment. So, given in the mining sector, we have provided a very attractive fiscal regime, we expect the mining sector to rebound. The mining sector provides over 70% of forex, which is very important for stabilizing the economy. Because right now, our economic mix is an import-dependent economy. Therefore, exchange rate becomes very important in the whole economic equation. If increased prices will lead, and a good fiscal regime will lead to increased we will see more evidence, and therefore reducing strengthening the budget, which is really a game changer. The cost of production and consequently cost of living. What we have done, for me, because we've been calling for that. The only that the budget has been in a country that the prices, the big fiscal cost. This is how it happens. When it goes to the expenditure line, there is a lot of reason I will explain to you. This government has continued with which over the years has not given us the dividends we want. The fiscal is not sustainable, not keeping for our areas. We are continuing again financing food reserve farmers, which is very efficient. What we need is a private sector driven marketing platform, the commodities exchange, and then the issues of fuel subsidies. So the 3 Fs are creating a problem for the minister. Continued farmer input support program financing, continued purchase of maize under food reserve agency, and also subsidy on fuel. These 3 elements have always ballooned the budget and created such a huge expenditure, and government has been crowding out the private sector, by getting a lot of money to finance these subsidies. Whose high expenditure itself is the main cause of the high interest in this country. Do you know how much interest is here if you want to start a business here? It's toxic. A country cannot recover with this kind of exchange rates. And the cause of the high exchange rate is highly consumptive government. So for me, I expected the government to rein on the expenditure. There was no need to have this expansive expenditure, and whose expenditure was more consumption. FRA, food support program, fuel subsidy, and then we have the issue CDF, and I'll explain how CDF has a very big component of consumption, and if it's not reformed, this CDF might backfire in the manner it is. We all appreciate increased financing for CDF. We are calling for that in Parliament, but there are many items that are now attached to CDF which are more or less experimental.
But don't you think that the minister or the new Dawn government have actually done their homework and put all those things you've just alluded to into account? And that's why they've opted to go for those long-term borrowing, even though they have been the people that have been talking negative about borrowing and the way the previous government, especially when we consider the consumption that the previous government took. They took up these loans just for merely consumption, and most of the monies, we rarely saw what they borrowed the money for. And where have you people who have been in the key, who are the economists, where have you been during that period? So this this issue of pointing a finger when somebody's trying to make things work. Because what I see is that the new government is trying to put things in order. And then I hear you coming up with such kind of sentiments, say they are doing well at the same time, but we are going back to the same things. Like we are being pushed by you, the educated ones, from one point to the next one. So what's your take on that?
Mr. Mkandawire, we have a problem in our politics. Generally, governments in and government out have not been listening to the people across the aisle. And when people are in government, well, they are doing the best. When you are talking, you are bitter. And the UPND was called bitter for 23 years. And now UPND is calling us bitter. I think we need to break that cycle. The UPND was very clear, and they were right, that we must stop the borrowing unless it's extreme. Now, the current borrowing was never out of an extreme problem. What the UPND should have
excuse honorable, we seem to have echo. My sister, could you kindly switch on your mic? Thank you. Go ahead, Honorable.
Yes. The UPND were in agreement as when we were campaigning that we must cease the borrowing for some time and do the refinancing of the budget. With the right economic recovery plan submitted to IMF and other institutions of goodwill, especially IMF, which is really the trendsetter for us accessing concessional credit, because the PF got some credit which was really commercial and quite expensive. So one of the proposals UPND had made during the campaigns was to substitute expensive credit with concessional credit, starting with, first of all, clinching the IMF balance of payment support. With IMF coming on board, then our credibility in the international community was going to be better, and we were going to access concessional credit and substitute the expensive credit with concessional credit. But before they got the IMF deal, they have already premised on the borrowing. And so the amount of money Zambia now owes is going up before the refinancing is done. I hope they will refinance quickly. If they will not manage to clinch the IMF and there will be no refinancing, they will have a problem to carry this huge debt burden which they have created. They are going to borrow about 4 point something billion dollars. That is too high. That's extremely too high. It adds on the huge debt we have already. So we don't know what they have up the sleeves with the IMF. If they strike the deal with IMF, perhaps they will have a better refinancing, which will tone down the demands of the Treasury to service debt. We can just give them enough time because they haven't yet concluded the IMF issues. But suffice to say, there was no need to have this extremely borrowing at this time. When a government gets into office, they are more concerned about staying popular. We must stop that. Governments are elected to deliver, not to be re-elected. This cycle of African governments, you win elections today, you are thinking of again winning, is wrong. It's shortchanging people. Even the PF, The moment they went into power, they were talking about winning the next elections, staying in power for the next 50 years. I think that's not important. We are never voted to stay in power for a long time. We are voted to deliver. So the populist angle comes in because we want to please people. We must not please people. This economy requires surgery. It needs a recovery process, a stabilization and recovery process for it to grow properly. You have seen already, sir and madam, that the exchange rate of the kwacha is now worsening because the market is not impressed. When the president was announced, they are so happy. Now we have an economist president, and then now the country is in safe hands. But there has been weak policy clarity and the recovery, economic recovery, program for the country, and therefore the market is beginning to react negatively. You can see now the exchange rate is going up from as low as 14 when the president was announced. It's really gained because there was that confidence. Now that confidence eventually is evaporating because the economic recovery program is not clear for the many stakeholders to buy into. So we hope they can quickly, come back on track so that the market can again believe in them, and we can have increased appetite for investment, which we need badly for growth to take place. So the price is still going up. So in the next 3 months, there has been no economic dividend that has come in due to a change of government. But of course, their budget begins on 1st January 2022. So I think we must be kind to the new government and wait at least up to the first and second quarter. So by mid-year next year, we will see the efficacy of some of their economic moves they have made. But I think they could have done.
My sister again asked.
I'm wanting to find out from you. I think this government. I think that this government was probably in a tight spot. So they get into government, and obviously they find a lot of debt. Wouldn't you then think that this borrowing that they're going to, which is 4-point-something billion, is a way of consolidating the debt and being able to find a way of infusing some money into the economy that boosts the economy?
No, partly, madam, right? For example, some of the borrowing is meant to pay off the bond, which is due this coming year. So they have gotten a cheaper debt to pay a more expensive debt, which is smart. That agreed is okay. It's okay. But there is an element of that borrowing which is going for consumption. For example, the employment of teachers and the medical personnel is being financed by debt. That is consumption. We are not against employing people, but in any economic process, you do it gradually. So we have this unprecedented employment of teachers and medical staff. We don't have a problem, but you see, these are very popular things, but also very difficult for a treasury. We are spending 50% of our budget on the wage bill, and in one fiscal year, our government is employing 41 members of staff, and already there are people who are working in government already who are not yet on salary, who are not yet on the payroll. Both the teachers and the doctors and nurses. I think they could have done it gradually, maybe 10,000 every year gradually, so that the economy can absorb, the budget can absorb that. But that's said already, it's very popular. Our people need jobs, they're not employed, so we go ahead because we've been told already. You cannot reverse that good news, but it could have been done better, gradually, incrementally. So the minister now will be sitting with now even a big proportion of the wage bill on the budget, and I don't know how he's discussing with IMF, but that is a very sticky issue with IMF because the proportion of the wage bill, or the proportion of the wage bill on the budget is way above the normal threshold, which is supposed to be about 30% plus minus. So the wage bill is eating about 20% of resources meant for service delivery, better schools, better health facilities, support for students. We have a youth badge in this country. Young people who are studying at UNZA, CBU, Mulungushi, Cavendish, UNILAS, they all need government support through a loan system. And I hear our friends are talking about free education. I think that is taking the country a bit backward. There is no free education. Even us, some Kedola and Mumba, I went to university through bursary. It was not free, counterpaid. By 1990, money finished, and there was a debt. And some children from Chitokoloki in Chama, they never got education because we ate the money and we never paid back. We were supposed to pay back. The system that PF left under Mkandawire, I think, was scientific and was correct. The issue of creating a very strong loans board, where those who went through university must pay back. Higher education is better financed through loans. We must be talking about access to education for all, not free education. We were there before, and it ended in tears. So in an economy that has all this, doesn't have a fiscal space with a huge debt and also unpredictable future. You know, the world now we have COVID. Now we don't know what is next, and therefore we must not operate as if things will be okay tomorrow. We must operate in a worst case scenario all the time, like the way Botswana has done over the years, where they were very prudent. And Botswana, year in, year out, had a budget surplus, and they were keeping money in the Pula Fund. And the only country in the sub-region that has billions of dollars in the sovereign wealth fund. They were talking about the future. But in this country, like many African countries, we eat the future in advance. We ate the future. You and I, we ate the future. We went to invest for free. It was not free. There is no free education. Someone pays. And therefore, the introduction of free education, which is a subsidy, is very popular, but highly costly to treasury, and it damages prospects for recovery. What we must be talking about here is affordability of education. We should not bring the issues of free education. For the orphans and the other vulnerable, there is already a system under the social welfare. And therefore, I think the narrative of free education is a populist. I know many people bash me, but I want to stand on what I know is the truth. And I think time has come for politicians to be truthful. We must not just want to be popular for votes at the expense of the progress of our country. Access to education for all is what we expect. Right now, they're talking about free education. They have not provided. Where? They are still boarding fees in schools. They removed the PTA funds, and the schools now don't have money to pay to buy chalk, to pay water bills and electricity. That was a self-help before government finances. You know, government funding is a problem in our country. Right now, some schools now they're saying they don't know how they're going to survive because they have removed the initiative available in the local communities to pay the small bills. What you should be talking about here is affordable fees. And those who cannot pay, like the orphans and so on, there is already an avenue that must be strengthened. But free education, then bursaries through CDF. I don't know where they are going to agree which child is going to be sponsored and the other are not sponsored, because I know in the rural areas, they will say, we all voted. Why should your child be sponsored and mine not sponsored? So they have actually brought you know, you see when they begin to apply this, especially on the issue of bursary for children in the villages in the world, it will be quite chaotic, and they might face a fallout.
I think my sister wants to ask you a question. That's why I think, you have two gadgets that are on. Can you switch off one gadget and leave the other one that you're using? Maybe that's why you're having this feedback. Otherwise, thank you so much for that clarification, Honorable Hamududu. We understand your plight and the fire in you, seeing the government coming up with these, but the government has only been in office for 3 months, and they are still actually have a long way to go. They still have 5 more years to come. And when they talk of free education, I think you have to read their manifesto for you to understand what they meant, you know. And I think they have taken all those things that you've just spoken about into account. it's not like the way we are trying to put it, to say the education will be just for free.
But can I chip in there? Can I chip in there?
Yes,
can I chip in there? There is no free education. For example, in this budget, they have not provided for support for students post grade 12. So for colleges and universities, there is no money in the budget, basically. And we are trying to be helpful to government. We are telling them, don't bring the narrative of free education. Let's continue with the loan system. Already, the previous government had brought a revolving loan system where they had asked children who graduated, I think about 10 years ago or so, to pay back. That money was coming through. What the new government should have done is to strengthen the recovery process so that the loan fund for supporting students, is enlarged. Can you imagine if Dr. Kaunda had started with the loan system of financing higher education? Today, at the Treasury, the loan portfolio was going to be the biggest asset of government. All of us, we should have paid back. All those guys who went to university, if you go to a university and college, you are given the capacity to earn more. Why shouldn't you pay back? So that other children from Chitokoloki, from Kaputa, from Chama, from Shangombo can also have an opportunity. So the feasible and the most sustainable of financing higher education is through a revolving loan system. Free education damages macroeconomic stability because it makes government consumptive. So we must be moving away from subsidies because they kill the private sector. When you run subsidies in an economy, government crowds out the private sector. They suck all the money, and the interest rates remain higher. And the government destroys the private sector, which is the real genius of job creation and growth of the economy. We basically in this country, apart from the mining sector, we don't have a big private sector to create the jobs and to grow the economy. And the president is very right when he's talking about the private sector. But let us discuss the mechanics of rebooting the private sector. One of it is government reducing its borrowing, its expenditure, to give some space for the private sector to thrive. All the money is sucked by government. And the private sector interest is 28%. What business can you run unless you are dealing in drugs? There's no genuine business you can do. Look at the loan portfolios now. You go to DBZ and you see they are literally closing in all the people who borrowed the money and brought development because the interest rates are basically toxic. And the private sector is being killed by high interest rates, whose main driver is a highly consumptive government. And I think the president has been very prudent, which is very correct. But that prudence must cascade to the government machinery. Yeah. So yes, it's a new government. But it's very important to start right. So they must not start on a very ground because they will have reformed their own mistake moving forward.
Could you kindly ask the question and drop your mic?
Yeah. You mentioned that you felt that this was an experimental budget, but I'm a bit conflicted because you say that the finance minister was your lecturer. He has been in that portfolio before. The president equally is an economist who has a successful business portfolio. So at what point are they experimenting? Is my question.
No, I can give you an example. The borrowing, government has literally reached the roof in borrowing. There is no more headroom, for that. And that was very clear as we went to elections. So where have they found the headroom to borrow extra money? Was it necessary? Because we need to go through austerity for the economy to recover. The economy needs recovery. And we cannot continue to behave as if the economy is okay. And I've told you already, there are no reforms, for example, in agriculture. That in agriculture, we need revolving funding, financing for agriculture. Farmers must borrow money. What they need are concessional loans. Not where, every year you spend money on the FISIP and the poverty is not going away, because FISIP does not give you the capacity to grow. FISIP only gives us enough shima to have, for us to have enough shima. We must go beyond having enough shima in the country. We need jobs. We need growth. I've gone around the country here. Farmers are not growing. You cannot grow from 8 bags. What we need is a financing mechanism for agriculture so that people can do real agriculture. There's nothing, because the banks offer, consumption loans, and the loans that are literally toxic for any investment. You can't go to a bank and borrow money to go into farming. Then your farm will be taken away. So what we need is to have a dedicated agricultural financing arrangement where the farmers, the emerging farmers in our rural areas, get loans and pay back. And we must promote a culture of paying back. I don't agree with empowerment funds where you give money like you are giving, sweets. Money must be paid back. What Zambians want are concessional loans, loans that make it possible for you to invest and prosper and pay back. You can't. MMD, by the way, gave empowerment funds. The money got lost. PF gave empowerment funds. The money got lost. UPND also are indicating they're going to give empowerment funds. That money will get lost. There will be no productivity out of that money. And therefore, there are enough lessons learned, and we cannot continue repeating the mistakes of the yesteryears.
Now, I want to have a question. Let's come back to the Zambian. I know that's beautiful. You've elaborated everything for us, and we're still going. We still have more questions. But I want to find out from you, Vadala. What are your what is your greatest professional achievement? And on top of that, what are your weaknesses as an opposition leader? Because you were with us, you were with the UPND, and suddenly, I don't know what made you leave, jump the wagon, and that's why there are so many innuendos, or rather allegations, that you were you were paid to come out of the UPND and split the votes so that Hakainde could lose.
So, there's no one who owns votes. First of all,
I know you're exercising your constitutional right as a Zambian to exercise your democratic right, but there are these are issues that we talk about in Zambia. You know that, because I can hear you are very well articulated and very well vested with when it comes to economy. That's why you're an economist. And then seeing you saying these things, and you were there, things were destroyed. You watched, and then you jump the camp. So what's your take on that?
If you were following, for example, the first one, the reasons, for example, for a divorce should never be published. For me, for my background, you cannot say who was at fault. It's called maturity. That I'm not going to discuss. I leave it to God. Okay. Whether I left or whatever happens, there is a story to that, and I'll never discuss that. The issue, for example, when PF was in power, I was one of the most clearest in terms of critiquing their economic policy. And if you want, you can Google. So if you read and you follow what I say, I always remain objective. Okay? Maybe I'm a bit diplomatic and friendly. When MMD was in power, I was accused of being pro-MMD. Of course, I like MMD. MMD should not have lost elections in 2011 because I think they were doing better. I was accused by my colleagues, and I walked with my head high. I was right. If MMD had not lost elections in 2011, this country could have been miles, ahead. We were almost on a takeoff. Musotwane was finance minister, a good fiscal regime for the mining sector and so on. And we were beginning to learn. And I think RP was good for the economy, save for some little negativity, but generally he was better than what succeeded him. So for me, I think judge me from what I stand for on the main issues. There is no one who is not sponsored, by the way. In Zambia, there is no government funding. Even your political party, they got funding somewhere. But we will not say those things. In fact, some of us are struggling right now, even to pay rent for the offices. We don't have funding, and I want funding also like anybody else. But I will not use the funding to champion an agenda that is not Zambian.
But you used your 300,000 to petition for presidential.
I got what?
Anyway, I was just pulling your leg when you talked about you are struggling financially. I was like, you used your 300,000. You used your money to pay for presidential fee. That money ought to have helped you a lot.
No. First of all, of course, I have got friends. I'm not really a street guy. I have friends. To raise 100,000, I can raise it from friends within a week. There are people who believe in me. If you remember, I was in Parliament, and I was the longest chair of the budget committee in Parliament. Some of the reforms in Parliament they're actually driven by myself. The establishment of the Parliamentary Budget Office, I was a key mover. Even the initial financing at Parliament through the EU, it was through my engagement with the EU with the clerk of the National Assembly. And some of the reforms they are benefiting at Parliament, I was one of the key drivers. So for me, I love my country. Asking me what have I achieved in public office, I mean, as a person in the country, judge me from public service. If you check my record at Parliament, even now, this new Parliament which is sitting, I was one of the resource persons for their orientation with the likes of Honorable Amusa Mwanamwamba. That's how I'm regarded. And in other countries, in Rwanda, in Botswana, I'm invited as a resource person. Maybe they say a prophet is never recognized in his homeland. So I have acquired sufficient skills and experience in the areas of public finance and general governance that I can add value to government. Even now, my friends in UPN, and they are my friends, by the way, most of the ministers are my personal friends. We talk. If they feel that I have something to offer, they must call upon us, and we will help them. For me, becoming a president is never really a personal ambition, and it must never be. To become a president is a favor from Zambian people. In Africa, there are many people who have an ambition of becoming president. That's why we have problems. To be a president is a favor given by the Zambian people or by any country. So for me, like before, my ambition is to see a better country. If it can be done under Mr. Mkandawire as a president or Moelo, that's okay. So the presidency issue, power issue has never been my issue. And some of, in UPND, I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends in PF. I have a lot of friends in MMD. Because maybe I'm a friendly person. So you will always accuse me that I'm moving out to that woman and so on and so forth because I'm friendly. And I'll not change from that. I mean, I must carry the humanity beyond the politics. These politics are temporary.
That's why you are popular. You are very popular.
Thank you. So my brother, to conclude this particular question, is that and I've been accused, even by the people that I've helped. In some of them, they can only write in their social media. They can never say it publicly, and they know. And I'll never go also understand on an auntie and say, this one I helped him like this. That's not my upbringing. I cannot destroy anybody, and I'll never do that, even when I know. So I've been a victim of mass-slinging, propaganda, and some of the people now are coming back, and we are becoming friends. Even now, my friends in the UPND, I will tell you, ask me about, for example, CDF, some of the thoughts I have which can actually save them, so that that CDF, which is being sung every day, it does not turn into a chaotic arrangement. I'm available, and my discourse is solution oriented. I critique and give a solution. Okay, and I think you need people like us in the opposition. If we all go back to UPND, then you want Mr. Mukwege, you want a one-party state. If you want one, then let's talk. Then you become one-party state.
For now, after what this PF put us through,
Can I ask a question, please, Bam
Yes, yes, my sister, go ahead.
Yes, my sister, go ahead. It's nice having you on the show, Mr. Highvie Hamududu.
Thank you, madam.
And it's lovely that you've come in. I'd just like to say hi to all the BAKWETU family and in Zambia, all over the world. I'm based in Manchester.
Wow.
Just to recap, my name is Barbara. You sound so good. You actually sound like my ex-husband who I divorced.
Wow.
From what you're saying, a person would actually think that maybe a sweet talker.
Wow.
Now, going to the questions that I want to concentrate on. So you've said a lot of things. Now, Mumba Saba Nandi even gave them a lecture as if you're in a lecture hall. Now I'm back.
Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned about the 3 F's. So you mentioned fertilizer, you mentioned the farming, and then you mentioned, the input, or the 3 F's you mentioned. Then you went on to I just want to recap what you've mentioned. You went to the employment of teachers and doctors. Then you went on to university tuition fees. Based on these 3 points that you've mentioned, I'll start with the last one because my own child is in university at the moment at the University of Manchester. In the Zambian setting, if you would ask for young people to pay for loans in university, because right now, based on statistics, young people are owing about 1.5 trillion million in the United States on tuition fees, which they sustain by having second jobs. So you have a student going to university, they work at McDonald's, they work at Subway, they work at different places. Some of them have rich families who, like their father is Mamusha, a lawyer, will probably chip in to pay for their university. You, as somebody who had university in Kaunda's era, you actually sound, sorry to say, like one of my friends, a Zambian here in Manchester, who says he does not understand why UK should give visas to Zambians who are just wasting their time, when he himself came to UK via Zambian visa and immigration. Now you got it free education. If Kaunda had to choose who can afford to pay for the loan, where you're coming from, where me myself came from, none of us would be where we are. Because let's face it, medical education, I'm a medical doctor, medical education in the UK, in Europe, is for the upper class. It's for the real McCoy, the people that we mix with, when they say, oh, where's your mom? Oh, my granddad is Lord blah, 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 Lord Lady blah, blah, blah. They are real high-class people. And then me, I come, my grandmother who is because Kaunda availed that to us. So from where I'm standing, what you're saying, Bahamdudu, it sounds so academic. It sounds so nice. You've read about it. If you get a school loan, like Bankandulu was saying, these students can just get a job, isn't it? They get, for example, I'll put it in minimal numbers. If I get £100 as a university loan, I get a job. That job will pay me, say, £200. You as a government will be so nice to me. You will tell me to pay, say, £10 every month in order to pay for my university loan. In the Zambian setting, these university students, is he going to get a job? No. Is there a guarantee that this person is going to get a job? No. Is there a guarantee that this person can get a part-time job in Hungry Lions and the parents contribute to the loan? No, that's university loans. Nurses and doctors, from what you're saying, if people had actually voted for you in August, you would have said there's no need to employ nurses, there's no need to employ doctors because the ones who are there are sufficient. Speaking on statistics, there's one doctor for approximately 1,000 citizens in Zambia, and I'm not giving the exact number. You're happy with that. There's one teacher for 1,000 probably students in Zambia. You're happy with that. Now, if you had been voted in, you would have been happy with those things. That's why I'm saying, are you saying from academic point of view or from the realistic point of view? From the realistic point of view, we may have
to explain.
do these things. I submit Hamududu.
May I respond?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Could I actually add on to yours, Doctor? I don't know. I was wondering, Mr. Hamududu, are you aware that when the loans were offered to the students who were being demanded to pay in this last year, they were never told that it was a loan? So people went into work and they were working, and then your boss or your supervisor would receive a letter from the government saying if any of your employees got a loan or got a grant from the government to study at the university, they need to start paying. So they never signed for it to start with. And then there was not actually a minimum fee you're supposed to pay. Sometimes they were just getting so much off your pay, including 4,000, 5,000, which would be the bulk of your pay. And maybe you have loans equally. I want to just add on to that.
Well, thank you, Mwera. You know, my submission actually is it's out of pity and being helpful to government. Madam, the student loan system, the way it operates or is supposed to operate here is that if you don't get a job or any gainful employment or business, you don't pay back. It's a fair system. If, for example, the people who graduated out, only 50% got jobs or 30%, only those will pay. It's conditional. You only pay when you get gainful employment. No one will follow you to pay if there is no work you are doing, if the government has not provided the environment for jobs in the country. I'm just telling you, how many of you went to university here under Kaunda? I did. Oh, yes, madam, we were supposed to pay back. So that child who never went to university in Chitokolo could have education like yourself and myself. The issue is about sustainability. Under Kaunda, for me, I put my hand, for Dr. Kaunda. He did the best. Even when they made mistakes, they were genuine. He took us to school to do things better. So Kaunda was not wrong. At his level, that was the best. You and I should take it to the next level. Imagine if from the time Dr. Kaunda began, supporting higher education, it was a revolving, loan, and people had paid back. Today, the student loan portfolio was going to be one of the biggest assets at the Treasury. It won't have 100% recovered, but money was going to be coming back. Madam, by the time Kaunda was leaving, the money ran out. Some of that money was from the debt. And then free education was removed, the so-called free education, but it wasn't free. Kaunda was paying. It was removed, and we have a lost generation because of a non-sustainable means of supporting education. I can tell you, my sister, Barbara, in this country, we have a lost generation whose future we ate. I'm asking those who went to university, Dr. Musha, Barbara, Mwero, and Mukelaba, and myself, are we not able to pay back in that pool so that that child in Shangombo can also have education? The government doesn't have the money now. The president is struggling now to find the money.
The battle between Kaunda, it's between you, Honorable Hamududu, and Dr. Barbara Chanda, not him.
Hamududu, listen, what I'm saying, I'm not saying that people should not pay back. What I'm saying is, on face value, Zambia does not have jobs for these people to pay back. So, for
But
example, if you're going to employ people on the statistics, for example, you're an economist, how many graduates are graduating from Zambia who are studying economy from the University of Zambia? Out of that, in 2001, how many are going to get jobs? So if,
but
for
you
example, let me sum it up, because we have to use evidence-based information. If we have 20 people graduating from the School of Economics, and of those 20 people, only 3 people get jobs, how much are you going to tax them for that payback? Are you going to put the pressure on those 2 people to pay the loan? Because it has to be standard. For example, in UK, the system that you've mentioned works fantastic here in the United Kingdom, and there's a balance. It says by the time you earn 25,000 per annum, that's when you start paying for your university loan. If you work before getting that amount of money, you can work for 10 years without paying back. But if you get to 25K per annum, that is 25,000 per annum, then you are expected to pay back your loan, and it's done automatically through your tax. You don't even have to write a letter. They will just see that, Edward went to University of Manchester. He's got a job. His per annum salary is 25K, and they tax it off. Now in Zambia, what parameter are you going to use to get back that money? Are you going to put all the pressure on just those few people who've managed to get jobs? Because that's what we do in Zambia. We tax people who work for all the burden of the people who don't work. We have the highest tax around the region, because we are literally paying for people who don't work. Why do we have to tax people so much money? My example is, you as an economist, how much, you want to be a president of Zambia, you want the universities, the students to pay loans. Tell me now, how much would you say they should pay back?
Okay, yes, the terms can be put. The issue is, madam, education financing must be sustainable. We have never had a sustainable higher education financing in this country. And that's why at one time,
sustainable, Honorable Hamududu, the word sustainable is banned. We don't understand it. What you are saying is that it must be kulipira. So mwakongwesha omuntu ero walipira ero nomba shire chitashani shire shunguluke mpiate shire bwekera.
Yes.
Is that what you mean by sustainable?
The sustainability is that we can do it for a long time into the future, forever. Because right, there is a revolving arrangement. I can tell you, sir, right now, I don't know how the government will do to support young people in colleges and universities. By the way, now, there are more students in the private universities, thanks to the MMD liberalization of the education sector. There are more students in the private sector universities, private universities, than in government. And support to students is not only to public universities, it's to all Zambians, whether you're at UNIVAS or Cavendish or Catholic University or SJ University or Baptist University. All the Zambian children are entitled to support. And therefore, with this youth badge, I can tell you, madam, that the best way to support higher education is through a sustainable mechanism. And if we do that, even jobs will be created. Do you know why we have no jobs in this country? We have a consumptive government that eats away resources from the private sector. So you want to give free education, free fertilizer, you want to buy maize, you want to subsidize fuel. The minister was saying that at a town hall meeting, and I think he's not getting enough support. If Dr. Musotana is watching this, I think in his heart of hearts, okay, at least I have an ally. Reforms, economic reforms requires that we give more premium to the private sector to reboot. That's where the jobs will be created. But if the government consumes everything by running free education, free fertilizer, subsidy on fuel, and so on and so forth, there will be no private sector growth, which is a genius of growth and employment creation. We became a free market economy in 1990. The problem is that we have no conviction of the genius of the free market economy. We move 2 steps backwards and then we come backwards. I can tell you we have learned enough ropes on this, the efficacy of the private sector. But before you come in, Dr. Musha, can I just talk about the employment of teachers? Barbara, you said, I'm not against employment of teachers and the nurses. It is the incrementality. It must be done gradually, because right now, madam, the government spends over 50% of our budget on the wage bill, way above the normal threshold, eating away resources meant for service delivery. And because of that, madam, we have compromised conditions of service by those who are in the civil service. If I were in government, I was going to start very ambitious public sector reforms, starting with a lean cabinet, and cutting the bureaucracy and releasing money for service delivery and motivating the actual frontline workers. Who are these? The doctors, the nurses, the teachers, the social workers, the community workers, the agricultural extension officers, the veterinary officers. These are the people at the front line of service delivery. Now, because of the expansive government that has consumed a huge wage bill through the bureaucracy and then so on, we have denied these workers better conditions of service, and therefore we don't have motivation in the civil service in our country. So reforms in the private sector are a win-win. One, the workers will win, they'll have better conditions, there will be efficiency. Number two, the economy will be given the breather. You cannot have a government consuming all the money, pushing up interest rates, and killing the private sector.
So just one last question. I won't ask anything more after this. In your government, since you said that if you had a government, you want the teachers and doctors to be employed in a gradual system, does that mean that you would also apply a moratorium with the education? Because yearly the nurses and doctors and teachers are graduating. So would you apply a moratorium with their education where you put a cap to say we are not going to have admission in the teaching school, in the nursing school, in the medical school in the next 3 years? Because from what you're saying, if these kids graduate, they're not going to have jobs, because ideally you would expect, if I go to medical school, I get to my internship. After my internship, I expect to be employed. So if you're going to employ people gradually, are you proposing that you would prefer them to have a moratorium, or is there another system where you'd say that they'll do something else whilst they're waiting for employment? Because at the end of the day, the government has spent, we would assume the government has spent so much money to educate these people. So if they're not going to be employed to offer the service, what will happen to these people according to your gradual employment process? That's my last question for the day.
No, Barbara, thank you for that. Over the years, when we liberalized the education, especially the higher education provision, for example, in teachers, there was oversupply of teachers. Even if the government wanted to employ so many teachers, it could not absorb, because there is a limitation to which government can employ teachers. You can't employ without an end. There is a fiscal cap expenditure that you must control. You cannot continue employing. What happened is that there were a lot of private schools that opened, and it was a good business to train teachers and nurses, especially teachers. Let's not talk about the nurses, the teachers. And there is an oversupply, which even if the government began to employ, they could not absorb them. And in other countries, they regulate the education, the number of teachers that must go into college, because you are going to create a lot of unemployable people. Because in Zambia, it's a business now to train teachers.
No, I think we've lost track, and I think this is getting too complicated. I think, Honorable Hamududu, we need you back. We need you back so that we can retrace. There are so many themes that you are addressing at the same time. There is a teacher deficit in Zambia right now, just like there is the lawyer deficit and medical personnel deficit, doctor, nurses, there is a deficit. For you to say that there is an oversupply of teachers is honestly quite offensive to our country.
No.
What is the ratio? What the student-teacher ratio in Zambia currently? Not even the 30,000 new teachers are going to reduce that ratio. It will still be high with 30,000 new hires.
No, we have the
we have an oversupply of teachers. In fact, we need 100,000 teachers so that every corner of every school in this country is covered by a teacher.
No, that agreed. But you know, an economist grows gradually, even when it's incremental. Dr. Osha, if you have a doctor here, if your temperature shoots up, you're going to have a shock. Even an economy experiences a shock. When one expenditure item it rises within a short time, it gets a shock. And therefore, everything there must be gradual development, even when you are dealing with a backlog.
But
so I'm not against employees.
The only issue is the messaging, because the way you are sounding, Honorable Hamududu, the way you are sounding, it is as if we do not need new teachers, because you use the word of oversupply. In fact, you are trying to put the blame on the private schools who started training these teachers.
Can I explain to you also?
All I need is to have that clarified so that when we are talking of the temperature, we focus on that instead of denying the fact that there is an underemployment. We have a very high student. Is it high or low? When you have fewer teachers to students, is it high ratio or low ratio? Katwish. But we have fewer teachers. Even this 30,000 is not going to be good enough.
Let me explain that.
Honorable Hamududu, you were an MP for a rural constituency. That rural constituency, weren't you? It was at Kalomo?
No, Wengo.
Oh, you were His Excellency the President's MP. So
yes.
So Wengo had without teachers. Or school with two teachers.
I want to explain that. Within the by the way, our communities over time have been through the PTA funds, which must really, I don't agree that they must be stopped. They were actually employing teachers at the local level to augment government funding. Colleagues, I don't believe in socialism. I'm a free market, because it's biblical that everyone must pay something. The teachers, in the rural areas, if you reduce PTA fee to 50 points, is that a problem? The issue is that, so through PTA,
I think we need a lot of time with you, Honorable Hamududu, because we
can I give an example? As I wind up on this, Dr. Mosha, can I wind up? I was in Parliament when PF came in. We told them, please, the rate at which you are putting infrastructure, you are going to have a budget overrun. This country will go into debt. No, people have no roads and so on. We must not use the people and use emotions to influence the public policy. Today we sit with the debt. They were telling us, sit down. People have no roads and so on. And they went on a spree, to put up road infrastructure and expensive. Finally, we are in debt. Dr. Kaunda himself, and I thank him, he did a lot of good things. There was a liberation struggle. So by the time he left, there was a 7 billion debt. Colleagues, there must be a level of subsidy that a budget must carry so that we create a sustainable economy. I can give you an example of Botswana. They were telling Saserese Kama, Masire, and Mohae, Why are you keeping money away? People are suffering. I used to work in Namibia when I left university. And when I used to pass through Botswana, the roads were dust roads. From Kasani up to Ngoma border, dust roads. They were creating resources for the future. By 2000, Botswana had over $6 billion in the Pula Fund. When they were comfortable and secured their future, they began to put roads. In this country, we eat the future. Government in, government out.
Honorable Hamududu, the example of Botswana, the concern I have with using the example of Botswana is that Botswana was 1 million people for a very long time. If anything, if we went 20 or 30 years back, they were just about 500,000. You can't invest into roads for 500,000 people spread over, is it 400,000 square kilometers of land? That would not be an investment. In Zambia, it's slightly different. So I do understand that. And I agree with you that the Patriotic Front overborrowed, but they overborrowed to steal, not to invest.
Yes.
If they had invested the billions that they were doing today, our road infrastructure would be good. But they were stealing. So let us not use the examples of thieves with what should happen. Because if it were the 1,000 teachers, they would have stolen the entire money. And then we
But can I tell you something? Can I tell you something, Dr. Musha?
Right.
2006 under MMD, the overpricing of roads was there at that time. This country has been undergoing systematic stealing. Yes, under PF, it was excessive. The roads, Formula One roads that were done by MMD in Lusaka, they are already washed away. And I'm happy that this government, they are trying to have a review on road construction. Sir, because corruption was introduced in 1991. We are already adults. We know that.
Okay.
And I think as a country, all of us, we must help the government, if they are willing, to stop the corruption in all facets and give this country a new start. The corruption was introduced in 1991. Now it is easy because of social media.
What surprises me, Vadala, is that the government is there and is very poor, but the people running the government, like from the previous regime or even the MMD themselves, they are the ones that are so rich, and yet the government itself has no money, has no capacity. But you go to individuals, you will find a lot of money. So my question to you, Vadala, is how do we retrieve this money? Do you think the money these chaps are holding on, they are keeping in offshores, whatever, can actually make a difference? Because we know that the infrastructure they purported to have invested the money they borrowed is not there. That's not the money. They have the money, they're still hiding the money.
To fight, we need a national approach to fight corruption. If you asked me, what would be my approach? Some of the things I say.
Yeah, what could be their approach? What could be your approach?
A truth commission. That everyone must explain his wealth. And give them an amnesty window, everybody. And when the amnesty window closes, then you can even bring Scotland Yard for those that never came through. We had, for example, under Mombasa, the fight against corruption was political. Me, I don't support any political fight against corruption because corruption has no party color. What about people who are corrupt in EPF who went in UPND? Are they exempted? The issue is we'll only win corruption if we make it a properly national fight. And we say never again shall there be corruption. And you can tell, and the president, I support the president when he said, in some cases, if you bring the money, there is a law within the anti-corruption clause that you can actually recover the money. I want to ask you, for example, Manawasa did a very spirited fight against corruption. He spent more money than what he recovered. Yeah. And therefore, we need to look at the best way to stop this cancer. This cancer is older. let me tell you, do you know why corruption now is so visible? Because of the ICT, because everything now is open. There was corruption before, but we didn't have gadgets. We didn't have the technology to get somebody who is stealing money in the morning through CTF. There was already corruption in this process. And therefore, corruption had become a culture. And for me, I will cooperate with the government to see how we can stop this corruption once and for all. Mauritius did, even Sweden, when they had a form of corruption, they put a truth commission on everybody. If you are going to have a partisan fight against corruption, do you know that PF became strong because of the fight against corruption? Those who were pursued, they came together and they grabbed the power. Are you aware of that? That the people that President Mwanawasa pursued, they took it, they were being pursued politically, and they came together and they came back to power.
You're now reading the Mumba's script of if you attack people because they've stolen, they'll become so powerful because they feel persecuted and blah, 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 blah.
It's lessons learned. You know that even now, comrades, even now, there could be people already in government who have been caught up by the same corrupt people. So this issue must be dealt with as a nation. And I'm happy that President Hakainde Hichilema is willing to give this country a fresh start. We must support
that was my next question. Are you happy with the approach of HH over corruption and the recovery of the stolen forfeiture of properties like 61 million? Are you in agreement with him?
Do you know what happened like on that one? The way they applied it, they have recovered, for example, on that approach, he recovered more money than what President Mwanawasa did. And the people have condemned the President Hakainde Hichilema, even some of his own people, for taking that approach.
All right.
For me, I think that approach on 65 million was smart. We want the money. You can't go into legal technicalities and then you are saying there's no money for employing teachers. Yet there's money for 65. If you go into court, that money will remain at our bears, and for 10 years you are in court. Now that money will be available for use.
Right.
So it's provided.
Honorable Hamududu, you are president of PNUP. What does it mean?
Part of National Unity and Progress.
All right. Where can a person who wants to join your political party find you?
Yes, we are here in IBEX, off Lake Road. If you are coming from Hilltop, you are getting into Lake Road. The first turn on your left, and then again the first turn on your left. Just near Chivero Primary. That's where our head office is.
All right. Would you consider serving or going back to UPND and serving with the New Dawn administration?
I'm always available if we agree. You can only work together if you agree. There are issues. For example, I'm very serious about, for example, on economic policy. One of the problems this country has these problems, and we are not developing at the rate that we are supposed to develop. That is in tandem with the resource endowments that we always lack clarity on economic policy. We are a country of extremes. Dr. Kaunda took us to this extreme. In 1991, we went to this extreme. We never strike the balance. So if we agree on the economic policy, I'm available. I was available to work with anybody, and I refused to work with anybody because we never agreed. Do you know what? I was appointed to be a minister of finance under PF. I refused. I'm not here to fly a flag. That is too small for me. For me, the biggest thing to see a better country. I cannot compromise just to fly a flag. That is nothing for me. I'm even happier now because I wake up anytime I want. 10 hours. Are
you saying you're a team player?
It's nice to know at least we now know your company. We now know your party, because you know what? During the elections, I was just hearing, Highvie Hamududu, Highvie Hamududu. I didn't know the name of the party. As weird.
Barbara, if you want a party that is progressive, You have found one today. You have found one tonight.
I've been UPND. Listen, I've been UPND for 21 years. Before we had money, before we had anything.
By the way, I was UPND myself. I was a UPND myself.
That's why I'm telling you, because when I started, you were there.
I was UPND before UPND had a councillor. I was a UPND representative in Namibia when we were setting up, raising money. And sending, yes. So so we founded, and I'm very happy that you are in power, and we can support you across the aisle. Get these issues we are discussing, that the economy needs to recover.
Yeah,
I can tell you. So for me, I don't need a job from UPND. I don't, but I'm available to help them deliver.
We will,
anytime.
If they need you, they will get you, but you should be aware that
I'm a president. What job can you give me? Well. I'm a president now. What job can you give me?
I thought just a few minutes ago you were saying it's Zambians who give you see now, you've forgotten what you said. When you started, you said a person should not aspire to be a president because it's a favor from the people.
No, for me, I'm available. I'm available to help for free.
I didn't go to medical school for nothing. You said being a president is a favor from the people. President, you see now.
No,
Honorable,
but for now,
it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and you know, you are very likable, because very positive comments on our feature here today. And of course, you've managed to at least begin turning Dr. Barbara's heart away from the UPND towards the people. But I think you, of all, like I said earlier, this election had two winners. President Highvie Hamududu won as president of our republic, and you also won, because for some reason, everywhere it was like Hamududu.
And he has an MP, I believe. You have an MP.
Yes, in Malila.
He won the populist.
Vote.
So like the young people, so young people, show. I think whether we are having once we resolve this issue with Moelwa, we are going to benefit a lot from her great experience in this, and so we've got to fix that thing. Well, we'll fix it. But you've been to fashion shows, you've been to dinners, you've been officiating at various things, even in Chilanga Mulilo. You've been a Shibukom. But more than just the name and the fame of Hamududu Highvie, I think I see why you are so popular.
It's likable. So where are you
taking this to?
First of all, you know, I'm charming.
Okay, but
also,
you are charming.
Let me not blow my own trumpet. I can tell you that it's not really about me. For me, I see it as providence. It's really, you know, it is beyond me. I can't walk in Cairo Road. I'm mocked.
No,
I can't walk in Cairo Road. Today, we were at the French embassy. There was a function there. Even ambassadors. I remember the British High Commissioner coming to me. Oh, you are doing well. You are doing well. You know, can I take a selfie with the British High Commissioner? So really, for me, it is God. It's God. I'm a believer. It's not about me. It's God. I don't know what is there for me in the future, but I can tell you, I want the UPND government to succeed. I will not just agree to things which don't work. I'll give you a very critical, you know, checks and balances the things we are discussing here are fundamental. Next time, Dr. Mosha, ask me, for example, what we can do to reboot agriculture. You'll be shocked. It's a completely different way. It's not FISIP. It's not FRA. Do you know the real secret in this country? It's land ownership. Land formalization is a precursor for real agricultural transformation in our villages.
Right. Okay.
If you want to fight climate change, the climate change issues are premised on land ownership. Do you know why people are cutting trees? Land does not belong to anybody. Do you know why people are cutting mkula trees? Land belongs to anybody. Land belongs to anybody. The main resource must have ownership. That's the first thing you do. In England, where you are, there are comrades in Canada there. The first thing they did is to formalize their economy. You can't grow a black economy where you put people in Soweto there and you think people can develop. People need to have ownership to their key resource, to leverage for economic transformation.
We'll definitely have you back sometime. We'll definitely have you back. And every one of us here, including my host, Mukelabai, and Moelwa Emun Ntanisha. The only issue was that we are, I think, having an issue with the device. And so we are going to correct that. And so it's been a pleasure having you, Honorable Hamududu. We'll have you again, and we'll be talking about various themes. I did see that you do have your daughter, Ellen Hamududu, who has commented here, and she's a defender. She's your defender. Because she's telling us off. She's like, Elias, you're saying nothing there. Leave Honorable Hamududu alone.
Do you know
Not
my daughter?
I'll introduce her to my son, a very handsome man.
Please, my daughters, but you have to pay 100 cows. My daughters, this one
Very
for the 6 points there. One physics, one maths, one what she has done way beyond myself. And my daughters will kill anybody for me. So you will have to wait back.
Right.
No, can you speak something? Could you kindly speak in Tonga before you winds up?
So ndalumba maningi ndalumba kapati ndikutonga wini are from Monze West, and from people that really participated in the independence. Yeah, vini bakalona nkondo kweta lwangu lugolo. The MP for Mazabuka, MP wakali mufaya mumbuna. When Hari Nkumbula gali MP kumonze. Because Monze was under Mazabuka. It was a rural council under Mazabuka. I grew in that environment. My uncle was the first Mazabuka rural council in charge of Monze rural council. When Monze became a full town from Mazabuka in 1968, my uncle, the elder brother to my father, became the first council chairman for Monze. So Monze is my father's town, my uncle's town. So if it's my uncle's town, then it's my town. I am the one who inherits. So twalumba maningi gapati bamosha Mwelwa. I like your name. In fact, ladies here, I like them, all of them. And you in the middle, we didn't talk. And Mukelabai.
I'm going to get to Louis shortly. Before you go, I'll get to Louis. But go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Twalumba maningi gapati ndimutonga wini uzuri 100% foolproof. And Mutonga, but I'm a Zambian first, then later Tonga. This issue of tribalism, must fight it. We are Zambians. Let's stop of thinking, no, me, I'm a Tonga, I'm a Bemba. There is no tribe which is better than the others. We are all the same. In fact, we all came from Congo. We are Congolese.
Twalumba kaboto bo Highvie Hamududu ningombe sidi kaboto kwanu kwa Manchester.
Twalumba kapati, Madam Barbara.
Yeah, wafia. I think he programmed Tayapwe. Number Hamududu. We have a young lady here. Her name is Louis Swana. Louis Swana lives in Chwempala, where I grew up.
Wow.
Do you know where Chwempala is?
Chwempala in Chingola?
Yes, that's where I grew up. That's where I was born. So I was born at Chawama Clinic. And I grew up in Twatasha Site and Service. I've lived on every street in Twatasha Site and Service. Kalanga, Choso, Mukanga, Kapumpe, Bwaliatsanga, Anyati. and Lulamba Street and Tuashuka Kuliakulas, all those streets. And so that's where I come from. Louis Nswana was very young when I left Chwempala, but now she runs an NGO which supports children without shoes. And so she goes to Chingola Rural. So imagine, if Chwempala we are even much more privileged. There are other members of the Chingola community in Chingola Rural that are much more less privileged than we are in Chwempala. So if Chwempala, so you get, what do you do? Please explain to us with Honorable Hamududu here. What do you do?
So Fiko Mwana Footwear seeks to help the plight of children in the rural areas, barefoot children that walk around barefoot. Some go to school barefoot. So as a foundation, we mobilize shoes on behalf of these children, and after shoes have been donated to us, we go out and give to these children. So far, we've been to Kalilo along Sorez Road and Ipafu.
Louis, Kalilo is part of what? Is it part of Chingola or is part of Mushindano? What is it?
Kalilo is part of Chingola. It's actually under Chingola constituency.
Okay. And Ipafu?
But Balui.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Balui.
Yes, sir.
You know, we must do something. As you leave Chingola, going to Mushindamo. Is this Mushindamo or Mushindano?
Mushindano. What's Solwezi?
You know, we have a lot to do in this country. How can you have a town which looks like there was a war in this country? No urban planning. You got, in this country, you people, after HH in 2031, give me this presidency, please. I need to sort out this country.
Okay, so which means you're not in 2026. Is that the case?
No. I'm trying to be gracious. I'm trying to be gracious. When you want this president so much, you can't get it.
Please, you say something to Louis Nswana and her foundation.
So Louis Nswana, follow me on Facebook. Please send a message. I'll be coming to the Copper Belt. I'm coming to Chilabombwe. There's a function there for young people. What I'm doing now is just to motivate young people to just work with them where they are, and just to be a role model. By the way, I'm also a businessman. Very soon when we come, we'll talk about the business I do. I'm a self-reliant man. I'm not rich and I'm not poor. Okay, as you can see from my skin.
That is
you can't hear this.
Honorable,
so Louis,
business. Is it marketing?
Yes, we do everything, any trading. Louis Nswana, please get in touch with me. Send a message. And I think you also phone because I can't give the number public here, people will give me problems. Please, Bamusha, give Louis my number. Please call me, and then as I come to Cover Belt,
what sort of problem Honorable Hamududu? Because even if you understand, Ellen first it's a switch off. What sort of problems would people give you if you gave them your number?
Let me tell you, people are going through a lot of problems. Okay. You get overwhelmed. People are suffering, colleagues, and that's why the economy must recover. The economy must begin to work for everybody.
Right.
That's why we need radical reforms, bold and radical reform, not a populist. So this economy can begin to work for everybody. Do you know how the economy can work for everybody? First, deal with the macroeconomic stability. Let's have a strong exchange rate. Let the interest rates come down so that the economic weather is fair for everybody.
All right.
So I can tell you, if I get the number here, it's a problem. So for you, madam, you are privileged. Please give me the number as we pass through. we'll link up and see how we can support each other.
Honorable Hamududu, I also want you to meet a group of young people in Chingola. They are known as Chingola TV Choir. If you've not seen their productions, I would encourage you to go and Google them. And as you pass through and meet Louis, you're also going to meet them, and they are going to sing a song for you.
Wow. The name again?
Chingola TV Choir.
Chingola TV Choir. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They'll sing a wonderful song for you, and we are going to videotape it, and we are going to post it on our TVBAKWETU page. You're not going to post it first, Honorable Hamududu. No matter how much tempted you get to post it, we are going to be the first ones to post it.
Please do.
And they're going to sing for you, and you are going to join them in singing. They'll sing Ataba ume niba Hamududu ateba umyaba.
But me, I can't sing even now. I'm a church person. I grew up, my parents took me to church. That's the best gift I ever received. My parents, wonderful. My mother is still alive. My father is late. The only thing I can't sing is a disaster. Unless it's in a group. On my own, I can't.
This one they just sing for 2 seconds or 2 minutes or a minute at most. Nishi, you are done. Okay, so you meet them.
I will.
So Honorable Hamududu, one more thing. For those that are listening to us right now and you want to help Louis Nswana's foundation, what's the name of the foundation again, Louis?
Fuika Umwana Footwear.
Fuika Umwana Footwear. Fuika Umwana Footwear. Nishta wala ndirefe at Fuika Umwana Nsapato. Footwear. Ichisungu tachipita mwino. Fuika Umwana Footwear.
You know, Louis, this foundation, one of the problems we have in this country, apart from corruption, is greedy. The world today has this depravity because of greedy people. Ordinarily, I'm an economist. If people are pursuing needs, everyone was going to have enough. But people are pursuing wants. Today you have a Vitz, you want a Corolla, you want a Benz. Afterwards, you want to have a helicopter. For what? Yeah. So there are many people today who can share shoes. And I want to tell you, even for my own children, my few children, because we went to school, we had a few children, we are going to collect a few shoes for my own children that we are going to give through. I even tell them, I tell my wife, for example, when you go to the village, we clean up our house and give away. You can't keep those shoes in your wardrobe as if you are that woman, the former wife of that Filipino president. What is that? Who had, I don't know how many pairs. No. Please. And I will help you, madam, through my friends, a network of friends, to see those shoes they're not wearing. It's something. Shoes. Hello?
Even you had more shoes than Banamakos.
Exactly. You have your shoes yourself. Chiruba? You are saying Chiruba?
Not me. President Chiruba had more shoes than Banamakos.
He's trying to bring
do you know, Barbara? We will see what we can do, madam, to mobilize from within our membership. Right. The extra shoes, they are there. Me, every time I have visitors from the village, we share shoes. For me, I just need about 5 pairs of shoes. I have no complex. My suits, 7 suits are enough. You can't be having suits and
you're now a celebrity. You need more suits.
No. I stopped wearing ties. It's a colonial thing. And when I become president, these things were. You know, MPs, I was in parliament for 10 years. I have never seen Africans who outdress their own poverty. We have more suits in this country in the parliament than people in Britain. I was there at Westminster for an attachment when I was in parliament. I was there at Capitol Hill. The suits which our MPs wear in our countries are better than these developed countries. What's the problem with Africa? I'm even happy with the President Hakainde Hichilema because he's not a fan of dressing. On that one, we are together. We are dressing too much.
The Tonga booze. Save money.
Barbara, you know what happened, Barbara? You know what happened? This is the last one. When I came to Saka, in 1989 to university. My father gave me some money. They sold a cow, and so my sister used to live in Nyumbayanga. So when I go to town to go and check for my bursary, I'll go by bus. Coming back, going back to Nyumbayanga, I'll walk on foot, right through Kamala, right through Chilenje up to Nyumbayanga, walking. Then when I go back to the village, I give my father the change. Yes. Even now, my children now in the university, when they come back home, they bring change. They have taken those traits. They bring back that we don't want you to suffer. They bring back the change. After this one, give us 20 years. We're gonna fix this country.
Anyway, so for those that wish to get in touch with Louis Nswana, on Facebook, she goes by Louis Nswana, Fuika Umwana Footwear. Do not come directly to us as TVBAKWETU. We have no capacity. We are very honest people. And so we can steer help directly to Louis Nswana. And so Imaba Diaspora, ask for Louis Nswana's number. Elo mumu tumineko ka world remit. Not ama bank transfers pan fia kare poa. Inoshten world remit. Mumu tumineko Louis Nswana pako bataka tuwale sapato kubaiche in Chingola rural. Louis Nswana is a graduate of a Bachelor of Social Work. She works very hard in Chikola. She's trying to make a difference in Chuempala okonafumine. So aleni bane mufwaeni Louis Nswana shampere namba bantu mukamushupa ngatwa mpela namba ngafina bachanda ba Honorable Hamududu na ewo ine Nswana ifechi. We are not going to give you her number. What we are going to tell you is search for her on Facebook, Louis Nswana no kumutumina, so that Louis Nswana, when she goes next to Kadiro baka ine nensapatwe shingi, she'll take a picture and give it to us here as TVBAKWETU. Just let her know that you got her contact from TVBAKWETU. That's all we need.
Thank you.
It's from TVBAKWETU, Louis Nswana to do a lot. And then we are going to bring you back again. Number, we have so many things that we needed to talk about. Nombe ishtayapwa. Honorable Hamududu Kanshi, I ran this program during my lunch hour here in Alberta. But we can go on and on and on. Particularly, you can go on and on because we are so in I work here, so it's during the lunch hour. Otherwise, it's just time that limits us. We are going to bring you back. Mwelwa is our co-host today, but because of the malfunction of the system, we are going to correct that so that she can join us and host another time. This morning, Honorable Hamududu, we got the news that Honorable Levy Mkandawire was killed in an accident. It's a very, very sad day. And so we are wishing the family, we are expressing our condolences to the family. The details that the police have released are that he had come out of his car to try and open the gate when a vehicle that was coming from somewhere else hit that small vehicle, pushed it to where he was, and pinned him to a pillar. And he then died on his way to the University Teaching Hospital. We are urging our people not to speculate because there is a lot of speculation nowadays. Let us mourn the passing of Honorable Mkandawire with the dignity that it deserves. Very difficult time for his family. For us as I almost say that for us as members of Parliament, Honorable Hamududu, but for us as
and you know, for me, Honorable Mkandawire, when they just got into Parliament, because you know I was a resource person at the Parliament, the new MPs, all of them, and when I went there to present my paper, afterwards, my MP, just from our office here near Chibelo, you know, Lake Road, he told me that I must give him a lift up to Engine, and he was going to meet a colleague who is going to, you know, give him a lift onwards. And that person was Honorable Mkandawire. And I knew Honorable Mkandawire when I was in UPND because in the other election, he stood in Lusaka Central. And I was campaigning, I was helping him to have his feet in Lusaka Central. Of course, he was a mayor before. Wonderful gentleman. 2 weeks ago, there was a rumor that he had died, and I don't know, people are speculating rumors. And then he said, "No, I'm fine." He said, "No, people are wishing you a long life." And now to just hear that he dies in these very, very terrible circumstances. He was a wonderful person. I knew him personally. And I met him after he became MP. And he was picking my MP. I dropped my MP and he went in his vehicle and we said hello to each other. The last time I met him, it's terrible. It's terrible. Yeah.
Mkandawire, could you kindly close for us in a few seconds, please?
Sure. Patili, we tumezibo Hamududu, Honorable Triple H, as you are called. We tumezahulu for coming. Thank you so much, Vo Barbara. Thank you so much, Vo Nswana. We tumezahulu Vo Mwelwa. Thank you so much for helping out with the program. And we tumezvo Munsha. Thank you so much. This has been TVBAKWETU. We just wanted to remind you that despite what we have, the sad news we received, do not forget that you have to subscribe to our page and send those stars that you usually do, and also put up the thumbs up. So this has been TVBAKWETU. Thank you so much. May God bless Zambia and protect Zambia and all the diasporans. Thank you. Good night.